Well, hello and good evening, everyone. This is Suzanne Knabe-Nicole from Police Science Doctor. We're here today to do a live interview with Detective Chief Inspector Ryan Brammer from Bedfordshire Police in the UK. And he's going to introduce himself in a minute. So wherever you're watching this, you may be on YouTube, you may be on Twitter or on Facebook. Welcome if you're watching this now or later. Hopefully you've got the option of posting a comment or a question, and if they actually show up where we are doing this all, then maybe it's something I can pass on to Ryan if you want to ask him a question. But we're talking about a very important topic today. So I've called this Becoming a Better Cop because I was really struck by a story that Ryan told me. So Ryan is one of my email subscribers. He signed up to the Police Science Doctor email list, and we had a chat one day, and he just told me this story that I thought I need to make sure that people hear this, because I'm hoping it can inspire, give strength to a lot of other people who are maybe in similar situations. And I think especially in the profession that he's in, police officer, serving police officer, it's often difficult to go through things like that and come out at the other end the way he did. So I'm hoping that this is going to be of value to you. And let's get on with it. So Ryan, hello. Thank you for joining me this evening.
You're very welcome.
So tell us a bit about yourself and your career and your role.
Okay, so good evening, everybody. My name's Ryan Brammer. I'm married. I'm 43 years old. I've got 3 children, and I live and work in Bedfordshire. And I'm currently a police officer with Bedfordshire Police, rank of Detective Chief Inspector. I've got, I'll tell you a bit about me. So several interests, mostly about sport, watching, playing, competing wherever I can, although being 43, that gets harder and harder every year. I like to exercise a lot myself, read, and I'm currently learning the guitar, and I enjoy traveling. I've been all around the world, so me and my family enjoy going on holidays every year. So just a little bit about me. That's me personally. Professionally, I've been with Bedfordshire Police 20 years, 20 years in April. And the roles that I've carried out in policing, they've been various, but currently a Detective Chief Inspector. Prior to that, I was Head of Custody for a year. Previous to that, I've worked in the Emerald team, which is a serious sexual offences team, and domestic abuse. And I've also worked in counter-terrorism for about 5 years as well. All pretty much a detective pathway throughout my career. And that's me in a nutshell.
Mm-hmm. So that sounds like a very varied and very presentable career, but there was also a time where things weren't going so smoothly. Can you tell us a little bit about that, please, and what happened there?
Yeah, certainly. So I think it was around end of 2018, 2019. And I probably should give this a backdrop, really. So I think policing in general has been a challenging environment to work ever since around 2011. We know that significant budget cuts have been made throughout policing. We know that austerity has had a massive impact on the level of resourcing that sits within policing. So the demands in policing have grown, complexity around investigations, how we disclose information, vulnerability, they've all added different dimensions to policing. And as a consequence, I think it's created more demand and more pressure on people. And, we've also lost a lot of police officers, experienced police officers in the last 9 or 10 years. Because they've chose different pathways, because I think they've suffered with some challenges themselves. So, and I think every police officer at every rank has faced some challenges, not just me, but also some of my colleagues. And for me, I worked in a particularly demanding area a couple of years back. And during this time, I felt like I didn't have much support from colleagues. I had to overcome some very difficult complexities in the team that I was managing. I think there was about 130 people I was managing at the time. There was lots of issues, people problems, and really I began to feel, if you like, the challenges, some of the problems that I was experiencing, that I was facing. So, and those problems kind of made me feel like I couldn't really tackle them as a police officer. Not one, because I was looking for promotion, so I had to aspire to the next rank in policing, but also as a leader, as a middle manager in the police. I had to show a degree of professionalism, resilience, and for people to look up to. And I think the best way I could describe it was I was smiling on the outside, but I was definitely crying on the inside. And I probably didn't have the confidence to ask for help. I did, to my own disadvantage, also take on too much responsibility at the time when I was in this job. And I think all of those things created this perfect storm environment where, it led to me having some physical challenges, but also some serious anxiety. And that was probably about 2 or 3 years ago.
I think one of the things that was really interesting in there was that you said you were in a leadership role. You had about 130 team members to manage. And maybe that was one of the things, that the status that you had, that was maybe one of the things that held you back from asking for help. So because you said you wanted to be someone that people looked up to, did you think that, what did you think their reactions would have been if they knew that you were struggling? What did you feel at the time about that?
I think there was two schools of thoughts at the time for me. There was one which was that personal level of professionalism, something that, their pride exists in you as an individual. You've worked in policing for a number of years, many years, and it's not right. This can't be happening to me. I've never experienced this before. In 17 years in policing, I've dealt with some real complex crimes, some real horrific things in policing, and I've overcome all of those things. But here I am in this management role, and I'm really struggling to find a happy, healthy balance. So there was that side of me, but then the second side of me was I can't allow people to see weakness in me, because if I allow people to see weakness and that vulnerability in me, I think I would lose more control over the team support, the team dynamics. So it just wasn't an option for me.
So you were keeping up appearances on the outside, partly because of your role, but do you think there's also something specifically about the policing culture that maybe is a little bit prohibitive of saying that actually there's something that I need to deal with?
I think policing has changed. I think it's come a long way. I feel a lot more confident now in policing, with people being able to ask for help. I think there is still a stigma attached to mental health. I think it will be a generational thing where once the stigma goes around it, that people may feel that courage, that confidence to come forward, to speak about it more openly. But I think there's some key things that are missing here, and I think it's really that recognition from that first line manager, that support network around you for those individuals. Because a proper leader, I look back at my experience and think to myself, if I had somebody that I could turn to, somebody that I had that trust and confidence in, somebody that I could engage with, then perhaps that would have changed the journey for me. And I think that was missing for me, and I think that's what the focus needs to be for all leaders across the organisation, particularly in policing, public services, frontline services, in fact, any job where it involves high levels of stress, demand, resourcing challenges, funding issues. We've got to look at taking care of our staff and recognising those signs and symptoms. And I think policing has got better at it. I still think it has I still think it has a long way to go of making those improvements, but it starts with people.
Do you think were there any points in time where you believe that there were some missed opportunities where in hindsight somebody maybe should have noticed something, somebody maybe should have said something to you?
Yeah, I do. So when I reflect back, and I'll tell you the journey, my journey to recovery, I look back and I think, there were support issues that I wasn't receiving. I think when I look back with a clear mind, there were some problem-solving things that I could have done on my own. I think, again, coming out the other end, looking back at, perhaps negative thoughts and feelings, looking and reviewing at your own management style, all those things tend to be those kind of individual things that I think add up and cause the issues that people suffer with. And certainly that was my experience. And I think if you had that initial support from a line manager, and if there was more indoctrine training around this area, then perhaps we'll reduce more cases or similar cases to the ones that I experienced.
So tell me a bit about the point then at which everything ground to a halt for you.
Yeah, so there was, I think for me, there was a moment where I was at work, and I went to sit an interview board. And by that time, I was obviously clearly unwell, but didn't perhaps appreciate how unwell I was. I'd contemplated whether or not going for promotion was the right step. But just prior to that promotion board, I had experienced what could only be described as probably the worst heart and chest pains, palpitations that were linked to stress and anxiety, which I later found out wasn't a heart attack. But at the time, I was feeling that physical impact of stress and anxiety. It culminated in sort of me sitting in my car at work for a couple of hours, hearing this constant ringing in my head, just prior to going into an interview board, and then sitting the board. And you could have asked me any question, and the answer I would have given you would have been complete, absolute nonsense. It would have been rubbish. So I wasn't able to really think about what people were asking me or the questions that people were asking me. I wasn't able to make any sense because I was experiencing what I could only describe as some form of neurodiversity issue, some form of breakdown, some form of stress, anxiety attack. Couldn't explain what it was, and managed to bumble my way through an interview board. Just couldn't wait for it to be over, and then realised that in my car journey on the way home, none of which I really remembered, I had an issue and I had to go home and I had to tell someone about it. And that really started the journey of recovery for me.
So tell me about that journey. What was that journey like?
It was very difficult because I was in uncharted territories for quite a long period of time. The first one really was having time off work. I think in 20 years so far, the most amount of time I've ever had off was this period. It was a 3-month period away from the organisation. Prior to that, I think I'd had a near perfect sickness record most of my career, just maybe with the odd day where I was injured playing sports. And it for me, I always think as a detective, and in my job, you need to start detecting and looking at what actually went wrong for you as an individual. So that's what I pretty much did. I spent probably a couple of weeks sat there really not thinking about anything or anyone, just trying to normalize my thoughts and feelings, but then realized I needed a bit more help in doing that. So I went on a journey to try and find out what had gone wrong, when those issues had started. And I was complimented along the way with support from my GP support from occupational health in policing. I undertook some cognitive behavioural therapy, which really did help in making me think about unhelpful thinking styles, personalization, black and white thinking, overgeneralization, those kind of things. But also looked at self-development, self-investment, started checking out who I was as a person, what my principles were, what my values were. I looked into meditation and did a few bits, looked into mindfulness in a bit more detail than some of the training that I'd initially been given. I did a wholesale review of me and a deep dive, really, and went back to basics and started to fix what had gone wrong.
And I think that's the interesting point here, because I think many people arrive at a low, but then sometimes they just wait it out. You know, like you said, you spent 2 weeks not really doing much. You just sort of try to normalize it. And I think maybe that's where some people would have stayed for those 3 months, or maybe as long as they could have stayed away from work. But what I think is a remarkable bit here is that you became really introspective, and you said, well, I'm a detective, let's detect, let's investigate what went wrong here. And you took the initiative, didn't you, to take up because not everybody perhaps takes up the offer of help from the GP in occupational health, and it's great that you had those. And CBT is one of the most evidence-based ways of changing how we deal with information, how we process information, and then how we act on it and how we interpret it. And so I think it's really amazing that you did that. Why do you think you managed to do that? What sort of, is there something that sets you apart, maybe that's specific about you, that maybe other people who are still in that contemplative phase of sitting on the couch and just wondering what the hell is going on here, and then just go back to work when the time is up?
I think I'm quite reflective as a person, so I had to find out why I felt the way I had felt, and there were some personal bits of responsibility in there that I needed to look at as well, which was being a bit of a yes man, saying yes to everybody, being a bit of a people pleaser as well. I recognise those traits, being quite agreeable as well, which I think is a combination with all those things I've mentioned as being a bit of a perfect storm to how you feel. So for me, it was a combination of all those things, really. It was, there was nothing specific to make me as a person think I was any more different than anybody else. It was just, as a reflective individual, I thought there's something I need to do, there's something I need to change. Let's find out what it is. Let's start from the beginning. Let's work my way through it. Let's solve one piece of the puzzle at a time, really.
And did you do that mainly on your own, or did you do that along with maybe your cognitive behavioral therapist or some other coach or counselor?
It wasn't really a straightforward journey. It wasn't like, stage 1 is this, stage 2 is this, stage 3 is this. It was a combination of all of those things. It was a combination of, let's look back at how you feel, why you feel that way. Let's look at your principles and your values. Let's revisit your thoughts and feelings again. Let's undertake some cognitive behavioural therapy. Let's get some support from your GP. Let's speak to friends and family. Let's look at what you do at home to relax, pick up hobbies, take all of those things. Let's have a look at the impact exercise has on you. Let's look at what your work style is like. Let's have a look at what you've done wrong in the past and how you can maybe put that right. Let's have a look at all of those things and keep revisiting them. And the most important thing is to keep revisiting them when you're well and when you feel well, just to make sure, just to give yourself that temperature check and make sure that you feel okay, and that maybe you're in a better place to recognize some of those challenges.
So when you say let's do this, let's do that, was it yourself talking to you, or was that your therapist taking you through this process?
it was a combination of all of it. It was myself, it was my therapist, it was friends, it was family, it was colleagues. Yeah, it was all of those things all at the same time.
So you said you got some of the observations of people who know your friends, family, and colleagues. What were their observations, and how did they help, if they did?
It's a combination, really. I mean, everybody who I've spoken to at work have said they saw some changes in me. They saw some signs. They hadn't seen that in me before. There was lots of well wishers. There was lots of people who were very supportive. There was lots of people that came forward and said, just give me a bell if you need to chat. Send me a message, drop me a line. I'm here to support you. So it was, friends were very similar. Family, they were very supportive. So, and the GP was fantastic, and occupational health was fantastic. So, yeah, it was everybody being my support network, if you like, and trying to get me to where I needed to be, which then happened quite quickly and quite natural.
And out of interest, what were the changes that your colleagues had noticed?
I think the main one, people said I looked extremely tired. I looked extremely. I looked battle weary, I think, were the comments that people had made. There was lots of questions that people were asking of me all the time. Are you okay? Do you need help? Is there anything wrong with you? But of course, if you've never experienced what I experienced or what other people have experienced, then you perhaps may not know that you're experiencing it. So you may just say, yeah, I'm fine, which is the majority of the time. I was fine, because I thought I was fine until I wasn't.
But it's also a reflex answer, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think especially in British culture, it almost seems like part of a greeting rather than a question. And literally, you're right. And I remember, everyone can tell from my accent, I'm not British. My accent is German. I came here right after my A-levels and went to university, and I was baffled that people kept asking me if I was okay. And and I was thinking, why? Do I look not okay? And it was just, you're right. But to me, I took it literally. I was wondering, why do they keep asking? Do they think something's wrong with me? But it is literally a greeting, in a sense. And you just literally answer it with, yeah, you're right. And it doesn't really mean that much, does it?
Yeah, I think you can become very passive when you're in this. When you're feeling like this, you can become very, non-confrontational. Just agree with things. I think you become more agreeable than perhaps what you are before, because you just want people to go away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, to deflect. So you said that actually once that process started, it was quite quick and natural. What did you mean by that?
I just started to join the dots. I recognised quite quickly that there was nothing to be afraid of. There was no fear. I had moments of realization where I could see where I'd gone wrong at work, where I could see what some of the problems were. A big part of that were those unhelpful thinking styles. Being quite negative at times as well. Well, most of the time. So taking some of the challenges that policing was facing and sort of making them personal as well. It's all my responsibility. Why that's failing. That over there is failing because of me, but it's not failing because of me. It's failing because there's a bigger problem in policing at the moment, and it's not just your responsibility, Ryan, to try and fix it. So. And recognizing that some of those things I had control over, and have control over now, but at the time probably didn't realize that I had control over. Because let's face it, even when you're fit and well and fighting fit and happy and you've got a great team around you, policing is difficult. there's so many challenges in policing. It's complex. You can have some really difficult days, really challenging days. Deal with awful crimes to victims, and even on a good day, those things can shake you and make you feel emotionally drained. You don't want them things to happen when you're really down and when you're feeling under pressure.
So out of the several things you did, can you sort of pinpoint one that maybe was a game changer, or was it really the combination of activities and processes you put yourself through?
I don't think there was one specific game changer. Let's just think about that. I think positive mindset was one. Identifying what had gone wrong was the other. Getting that support network around you and that awareness. I think about understanding more about your principles and values as who you are as a person, those unhelpful thinking styles. I think it was a combination of all of those things. So what I would say to anybody experiencing this right now or in the future, or maybe think they're experiencing this or in the future, there is no real one method that suits all. Some people may find talking to family and friends helps. Some people may find physical exercise helps. But I think if you are experiencing it, it's already gone a step too far. You haven't recognized that you are experiencing it. So what you probably need to do is go and revisit some of your thinking styles. Why do you feel the way you feel? Because we all know that cognitive behavioral therapy looks at how you feel and how you think about things is then how you then go on to act and how you then go on to portray yourself. And I think if you're portraying yourself in a very down and you're depressed or you're upset or you're angry or you're anxious, you've already kind of gone through that journey. So it's about recognizing how you got there. What are the things that are making you upset or uncomfortable about how you think and feel?
Then what happened when, with all those new processes and internal workings in place for you, then tell me about when you went back to work.
Yeah, so I had one person really to thank at work who was a rock for me. He was very supportive. He was my line manager, new line manager at the time. Gave me the space, gave me the confidence, gave me the support. Really couldn't really thank the support that he gave me enough to continue on that journey whilst I was at work. So I had quite a quick introduction back into the workplace and recovered quite quickly. And so that individual, really did make the difference. And what then happened was I changed my style, I changed my approach. I just became a lot more of a confident person. Conflict didn't really bother me because I knew how to think about it and manage it. Demand, it's always going to be busy in policing, so let's just accept that and move forward. Let's always take things in that positive mindset, that positive approach, because what you see is signs of this kind of behaviour from people all across the organisation at times because of how difficult the job is. And yeah, it was a significant change. I then did a lot of work around self-development, self-investment. I looked at never conflicting or compromising on my principles and values, which I'd done before in the past. So if I thought something should be done a certain way, I'm sticking to it, even if it and what you do will not make me change my values and thoughts about things, but let's talk about it and we'll come up with a compromise if we need to. And when I went for promotion again, I felt like I flew through the process because I was just much more happier, I was much more healthier. I could see my evidence more clearly. I felt more confident at work. I had better relationships with people. Yeah, I couldn't, and I put that down to all those things I've already previously discussed, plus the support I had from a line manager of mine.
What was the support that your line manager was giving you?
Just the confidence. He gave me some confidence. He understood what I had gone through, what I'd experienced. He was very supportive. Always made time for conversations. Despite the pressures of work and the demands that were placed upon him, what he didn't do was do the same to me. So that level of shielding, that level of protection, supported me in my corner when the organisation wanted me to go off and do other things and take on more responsibility when I wasn't ready. So yeah, it was a combination of those things, really.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that enough emphasis is being placed on these internal processes in police members?
It's interesting because mindfulness now exists within policing, has done for a few years. I know that there are teams looking across that, workforce development around supporting officers and staff with well-being, with health and welfare. I can't help but think it needs to be more. There needs to be more self-investment from individuals. They need to have more time to self-invest. We need more programs available for staff. We need to start it right at the very beginning when officers join, because I've been in policing for 20 years, and this was the first ever time that I'd really heard of cognitive behavioural therapy after 17, 18 years, and looked at all those self-development, self-awareness things. So it's being introduced. Let's introduce it not just at one stage. Let's introduce it throughout people's careers so that they can continue that journey in understanding those areas of neurodiversity, really.
Mm-hmm. And if you were to summarize your journey of recovery, what would you highlight as the main points, perhaps, that I visualize it as like, you're sitting in a hole in the ground, perhaps. What were the stepping stones out of that?
So I suppose the key points for me, looking back now, is self-awareness. Get that support personally and professionally, or professionally and personally. So, get the support first and foremost from the organisation, because that's the environment you're in, and we must look after our people. And we've got good leaders across the organisation, so let's make sure that as good leaders we know our staff, we take the time to invest in our staff. Personally, get the support of your friends and your family around you, because I think that makes a massive difference. The biggest one for me is lose your unhelpful thinking styles, because they exist in all of us. We just don't know they do until we explore it, and stay positive, really.
If you had a magic wand and you could wave it to make one change in policing, what would it be?
I think we've already discussed this. I think through that investment, cognitive behavioural therapy very early on in people's careers, to understand their thinking, their feeling, how it impacts on them, their decisions, and how it can make them feel stressed and anxious. I think that continuous training around mindfulness, and that investment in welfare of officers and staff throughout policing, really. We all know that prevention is better than the cure. So let's get in early. Let's do that self-investment. Let's with our staff. Let's make sure that they get that support and it's continued throughout their career, not just in the early stages, not just in the middle, not just at the end, but constantly.
Mm-hmm. And now, to bring this to a close, if let's imagine you're speaking directly to some officers who are listening, who are maybe struggling, maybe thinking, like you, I've got people looking up to me. I can't look vulnerable. I can't look weak. Maybe I'm okay. let's see. What would you say to officers who are sort of undecided about how to proceed now?
It's an interesting one, because it's going to be really difficult for those officers to maybe recognize they're feeling this way, or they almost have to give in to the fact that they are feeling vulnerable, they have got some issues. But I would say, if you are experiencing this and you're watching this, or you subsequently watch it later on, take this away with you. You will bounce back. You will become stronger as a direct result. Try to understand yourself, where it went wrong, and do some of that digging. Invest some time in yourself. Once you feel better to understand your principles and your values and where they are, and really and truthfully, I would say, don't compromise those for anybody. And rely on your friends and family. They're there for you. They're there to support you. But if anyone is struggling, then there is help and support available to them through wellbeing champions at work, in policing. There's the backup buddy scheme. There's things all over the internet in police forces around it. But really and truthfully, those are the things for me. You will bounce back. Understand yourself, where it went wrong, and invest some time in yourself and your own principles and values. And as soon as you recognize that you're feeling that way because that's the way you're thinking, then do some work around your thinking styles, because you'll start to feel better straight away. DCI
Ryan Brammer, thank you very much for your time today. I hope that this really struck a chord with some people, and congratulations on the recovery and coming out much better than you went in.
Thank you very much, Susanna. I really appreciate it, and best of luck.
Thank you.